In the heart of the location that had tragically become a mass grave for countless individuals, our story unfolds. Many lives were sacrificed in the relentless pursuit of victory in an insurmountable war. Among the survivors, their sole aspiration was simply to live. In this world, there seemed to be no purpose beyond this primal instinct. Enduring unimaginable hardships, one individual pressed on, emerging as the central protagonist of our tale. As he strode toward the source of an intense, radiant light, he believed that, after 98 previous failed attempts to complete the mission, he might finally reach the conclusion of his arduous journey. Upon entering the room, the fearless warrior was confronted by a formidable assembly of guardian golems. He couldn't help but question whether this was, in fact, the 20th mission. Behind this imposing line of golems, a shadowy passageway beckoned, leading our main character to wonder if these sentinels were guarding the path to something more significant. With determination in his eyes, our protagonist initiated the summoning of his weapon. He knew that the gleaming guardian golems wouldn't permit his passage to the room without a challenge. As he summoned his weapon, a crimson scythe materialized in his hands. The moment the guardians beheld the scythe, their eyes radiated with a newfound intensity, as if they had been awakened from a dormant state. These formidable beings commenced their march toward our hero, brandishing their colossal weapons with a purpose. Their coordinated assault began as they sought to strike him down. Fortunately, our main character's agility served him well, enabling him to evade the devastating blows with nimble movements. This proved to be the perfect moment for a counterattack. Our hero, with unwavering determination, uttered the incantation, Seal of Death. Instantly, a magical circle bearing a grim skull symbol materialized directly above the guardian golem. Empowered by this ominous seal, our protagonist cloaked himself in a fiery, dark aura, his newfound swiftness eclipsing that of the guardian golems. Utilizing this surge in speed, he launched the decisive blow to secure victory. The attack he delivered left an enormous, gaping fissure on the colossal guardian's body. After this successful strike, our hero strategically put some distance between himself and his opponent, a satisfied smile gracing his face. He understood that his plan had unfolded flawlessly. Hitting an adversary marked with the Seal of Death skill triggered a notable response, enhancing the damage inflicted by an astonishing 100%. With one of the guardian golems finally vanquished, the remaining sentinels charged menacingly toward our protagonist. In the face of these colossal monsters, he appeared as inconsequential as a mere insect. Yet, intimidation did not deter him. Suspended mid-air, our hero imbued his weapon with a sinister, dark aura intended to counter the holy beings, a skill known as the Night of Death. Gradually, the guardian golems found themselves enveloped in an all-encompassing shroud of darkness. The radiant light that once bathed the temple was devoured by this inky veil, rendering the holy beings blind to their surroundings. Seizing the opportunity, our protagonist unleashed a devastating slash, an attack that generated an immense surge of energy capable of erasing an entire horde of monsters in an instant. Despite landing his attack, our hero remained composed, but it became evident that even his large-scale assault had left the guardian golems completely unscathed. The holy beings charged arrows infused with pure ice and fire energy, launching them with incredible precision towards our protagonist. These arrows came perilously close to grazing him, each strike threatening annihilation. Faced with this relentless barrage, our hero realized that he needed to further elevate his speed to evade the impending danger. With unwavering determination, he leaped directly into the path of the charging guardian golems, meeting them head-on. Our protagonist's speed reached godly levels, enabling him to create afterimages that confounded the golems. In response, one of the golems equipped multiple arrows into its bow, releasing them with such incredible speed that they exceeded the very bounds of light, striking down nearly all the illusions our hero had conjured. In the midst of the dire and intense confrontation, our hero maintained his composure and even had the audacity to smile and taunt the guardian golem, asserting that it would take more than their attacks to hit him. However, his smug expression quickly faded as a brilliant light materialized beneath him. Our protagonist realized that an unexpected magic seal on the ground had triggered a trap, summoning a colossal mass of ice that ensnared him, immobilizing him completely. The exceptional speed he had bragged about just moments ago had vanished. Determined to break free, he exerted his utmost effort, gradually causing the ice to exhibit cracks. While he struggled to escape, the guardian golems drew near the trapped hero. One of them, wielding a massive spear, prepared to unleash a devastating strike. The ice remained unyielding, but the cracks became more pronounced. Then, our hero's eyes transformed into a deep crimson hue as he activated another skill, Moonlight Destruction. A radiant red light sliced through the ice wall that had entrapped him, setting him free. The attack not only liberated our hero but also struck the guardian golem positioned before him, revealing the true power he had kept in reserve. Activating this skill also triggered a transformation and enhancement of his equipment, and he confessed that the situation had brought him perilously close to failing the mission. Having expended considerable time and effort battling the guardian golems, our protagonist made the critical decision to conclude the encounter with a single, decisive blow. The dark and ominous aura surrounding his scythe grew increasingly aggressive, signaling the impending climax of the confrontation. Recognizing that the situation was about to spiral out of control, the guardian golems prepared their most potent attacks. Seals, arrows imbued with formidable magic, and physical weapons charged with powerful energies were all readied. In response, our hero executed a powerful forward stomp, amassing an immense force to bolster the impending strike of his scythe. Infused with an overwhelming dark force, our hero unleashed his Moonlight Destruction skill once more. However, this time, the potent aura surrounding him was enhanced by another skill, the Red Moon. The resulting slash was akin to the one that had shattered the ice, but had a significantly larger area of effect. The colossal beings that had once dominated the area were cleaved through like soft butter, their lifeless bodies tumbling to the ground. Our protagonist touched down, relieved to see that these formidable adversaries were finally vanquished. With the guardians defeated, he advanced toward the room they had been guarding, delving deeper into this mysterious place. An odd sensation washed over him, prompting him to assess his surroundings, which appeared to be a new temple. Yet, it seemed eerily empty. Uncertain of his next course of action, he decided to approach the door at the far end. As he drew nearer, the magic circle drawn just outside the door began to react. With resolve, our hero positioned himself in the center of the circle, eager to discover what would transpire next. As our hero waited, a wistful smile played upon his lips, contemplating whether this might finally be the run that sees him complete the game on his 99th attempt. However, his optimism quickly crumbled as a notification appeared, revealing that only 1 out of 5 players were standing on the magic circle. The cruel reality dawned on him that, to enter the boss room, a full party of 5 players was required. In that moment, all the hardships and sacrifices he had endured felt like they were slipping into oblivion as the notification informed him that failure to meet this requirement would result in his death. A golden light enveloped him, trapping him within a barrier, his frantic efforts to escape proving futile. In his last moments, he cursed the absurdity of this final requirement, but it was all in vain. His body began to disintegrate, and he could only wonder if this was truly the end. His expression shifted as he grasped that this was indeed the conclusion. The final second counted down, and the game notified him of his death. However, in the midst of despair, an item called the Rune of Regression was activated. This last surviving hero would be sent back to the time before the first mission began, marking the 100th time the rune had been used. As a result, the Rune of Regression would now disappear, but our protagonist would embark on his 100th regression, starting over once more. The story begins in front of this Korean palace that was placed right in the middle of the city. Today was the last day of the year, and a lot of people have gathered in this place for the countdown towards the new year. As it came down to the last 5 seconds of the year, one person emitted this bright blue aura around his body. His face was shown, and it was evident that he felt some discomfort. This guy looked at his hands and realized something. And that was when he came back to his previous life. His hands trembled as he figured that this was the same time before humanity got swept away inside a damned game. This individual clenched his fists as he remembered that he had almost cleared the said game. He was already in the 20th round. In his mind, he wished to have the powers to stop the time. Because right now, there's only 2 seconds before the disaster hits their lives. He also recalled what the system showed to him right after dying in his previous life. This right here was his 100th time of using the rune of regression. It had already reached the limit. As the last second of the year reaches, this guy who will be our main character thought that since this seemed to be his last chance for regression, he would surely finish the game. He then prepared himself for what was about to happen. RMC also thought of the last requirement that he was not able to fulfill on the 20th round of the game. And that was the thing that he needed to bring 4 more people with him. He then started to check his surroundings as he wondered who would be the best people for these roles. Several minutes before the countdown, another individual was shown. This guy was now with his friends. They were also right in the middle of the city and were about to celebrate the new year. And while waiting, one of his friends wondered what he should do after their graduation. This bald guy thought if he could just be a delivery man. The same person then directed the question to his friend. It was then revealed that the name of this guy was Young Min. He smiled as he answered the question. He commented that he plans to be a gangster. His friends heard him and it made them confused. They didn't think that Young Min was really serious about this thing. In Young Min's defense, people only live once, so he should do everything he wants. Uneasiness grew on these guys' faces as they realized that they should keep their distance to Young Min after graduation. Being related to a gangster was never a good thing. The bald guy then asked Young Min what will happen to his personal shuttle after graduation. This question painted the image of a poor and gloomy guy in his mind. Young Min then laughed as he revealed that he will not let his shuttle go even after graduation. His friends joined as they found this really funny. This one even added that he should play with that guy for as long as he wanted. And while they were talking about that shuttle, one of Young Min's friends revealed that he just saw that person. This was the same time that our MC's body was enveloped with this bright light. The same 5 seconds he regressed back to his 100th chance. Young Min smiled and confirmed that his friend was right. But as he stared at the person who used to bully all their high school days, something felt different. This got Young Min confused. This guy right here was not the same shuttle he knew. RMC's face now has this more confident look and it seemed like he was more mature. He also dared to stare at Young Min. This one then commented that RMC was really different from his usual self. Young Min got really annoyed as this was the first time that RMC did this. He was about to teach him a lesson, but his friends stopped him. They reminded him that this was now officially the first day of the year and he would have a lot of chances in the future. Their statements made Young Min calm down and he decided that he would let RMC off the hook for today. The 4 of them then continued celebrating as they figured that they were adults now. They also greeted each other with a Happy New Year. But then, a mysterious voice saying that humans were interesting has been heard. The voice claimed that humans dared to celebrate the new year even though they didn't know what situation they were in. And since the mysterious voice has been heard by everyone, they tried looking for the source of it. A majestic creature with white wings and white dress then emerged. This one was also enveloped with this bright light. Her voice also had this soothing effect. This one who looked like an angel then smiled as she felt amused on how humans were acting now. She claimed that for their race, humans were just like monkeys inside their cages. All of the people that have gathered right in the middle of the city were then captivated by the appearance of this mysterious being. They even thought that she was too beautiful. That was the same for all of them except for RMC. He got his gaze on the angel and thought that she had finally appeared. He still hated this scenery even though he had gone through this 99 times. The angel tried stopping herself from laughing, but she just couldn't help it. She then claimed that all of them were trash for having the luxury of being love-struck by her appearance. The angel also added that they should not think about these useless things as she had no plans on being around them for a long time. Her fascination and smile grew more as she figured that since these humans could clearly see her, they should also be able to hear her properly. One of the guys that grew tired of her laugh then shouted towards her and asked for her identity. This guy even mistook her as someone who was just cosplaying as an angel. And while that guy was whining, RMC kept himself quiet. The angel still had the same smile, but this time, she got speechless. Her eyes then turned red and gave this sinister look on her face. She commented that this scene was really annoying. Something then happened to the same guy who was shouting at her a few seconds ago. The head of this one suddenly bursted. The person who was standing beside him got blood all over his clothes. His body also started to tremble. It took them a few seconds before they processed what really happened. A loud scream was then heard along the area. Yo Min was one of the guys who saw what happened and wondered what the hell was that. The angel has spoken again. But this time, her sweet voice was gone. She then warned all of the humans to never dare to speak informally to her mighty self. She also added that these ones didn't have any right to ask any questions. They should also never act arrogantly in front of her, or else they would suffer the same fate as the previous human. The angel then continued her speech while giving the idea that humanity right now belongs to a much inferior race. RMC could only sigh as they reached the part where the angel would explain why these things were now happening to them. With a more bright smile and vibe, she informed everyone that they will now be playing a game from now on. For 20 rounds, on the 1st of every month, their souls will be transported to a new dimension to participate in a game. She etched the idea that this was the only thing that humans would do now. For the next days of their lives, they would be focusing on completing the given quests. If they managed to complete all those quests, they would receive some rewards and would be returned back to the real world. Hearing this made some people confused. They thought that their lives could be spared once they completed the said quests. The angel read the same thoughts that the humans had, and she chuckled as she told them that even if they could complete the quests, not everyone would have the luxury to survive. RMC continued standing there as the mechanics of only half of them being allowed to survive was revealed. He was the only one who had a calm expression. As for all of the people around him, they all felt as if their lives were about to end. The angel continued her speech and suggested that humans should really not need to worry as she won't take all of them. RMC could only sigh in this situation. He had heard this one for 99 times already. It was then revealed that only humans around the world aged between 15 and 29 will participate. And while listening, RMC thought that he never had imagined playing the same game over and over again. Upon hearing the condition, one of the elderly smiled and claimed that he was safe. This action then annoyed the ones whose age group were included in the said game. He claimed that it was just like pouring an oil into the fire. Yo Min then stepped in and stopped them from arguing. He reminded these guys that they should not create any ruckus as they could end up like the guy who died. The wings of the angel then spread out as she claimed that they should now start. She also revealed that the number of participants for the game would be around 1.9 billion. Her face grew more excited as she told the humans that since the explanation was done, they should now proceed into the game proper. The whole area was then enveloped by this white light. Everything vanished, except for the bodies of the participants. RMC was clearly included. The angel then revealed that the participants had just entered a place called individual spaces where they were the only ones who could see it. She then instructed everyone to shape their bodies so they could be prepared for the soul transfer. This face right here was just like how players customizes their characters that will be inside the game. They only have one chance to do this, so they really need to choose wisely. As for RMC, he thought that he would be choosing the same thing he had last regression. The looks and characteristics of his previous avatar were now being chosen. Even his nickname inside the game was the game. And it was Black Scythe. A few seconds after completing the customization, players were transferred to a whole new place. This one was an open field. The avatars of the participants slowly materialized. This right here was the same look that RMC has chosen over and over again. He now had this black hair and crimson red eyes. His build was also a lot taller than his real body. This also marked his 100th time inside the game. Since he had the same body from his previous regressions, he felt like this was his real body. He didn't even need to adjust to it. As for the other humans, their avatars also have been transported inside this new world. Some of them were even amazed at how they have customized themselves. Our MC observed how these guys have intentionally made their avatars good-looking. But this was one of the mistakes someone could make in the beginning. In this other world, the strong prey on the weak. And if their appearance is too noticeable, it's easier to become a target. And this was a costly mistake because if someone dies in-game, they will also die in real life. Our MC's gaze was then shifted to a certain individual who he had been waiting to arrive. And it was none other than Hwang Yo-min, the bully that made his high school life miserable. Black Scythe was a bit disappointed because he had already expected Yo-min to buff himself inside the game. When all the players were transported, the angel appeared once again and greeted them. She also noticed that these humans looked like they got really fond of their new looks. She then got excited as she wondered how these handsome and beautiful faces would turn into after they felt fear and despair. Right now, all of the humans that were in Seoul were transported here. There will also be around 1.8 million people who will be participating, which made other people wonder why they could only see a few of it. The angel laughed as she thought that this was what makes humans inferior. Her mood also shifted as she revealed that this space was not the only one who would cater to all the participants. There were also other angels that were now proceeding with the round. And without further ado, the angel has started explaining more information about this game. Players could access a type of status window as long as they could think of summoning it in their minds. This was an example of what it contains. The one in front of us was the status window of Black Scythe. There's really nothing to be noted here because it was just the beginning of the game. Our MC also sighed because all of his max-leveled stats in his previous life were all gone. The angel asked everyone if they had all seen their status windows. She noted that this was a reminder of how trashy they are. And for them to be able to survive till the end and clear the 20 rounds, all they needed to do was to get stronger. If someone could really achieve this feat, the angel revealed that the reward will be anything that they could wish for. On top of that, they will be exempted on the games that will be played. Other people started thinking of the things that they really desire. That reward was really tempting. And to start things off, the angel smiled as she revealed that she prepared a little something for everyone today. The players accessed their inventories and saw something notable. There's now one item that was placed inside. It was a random rune. The angel explained that this rune could only be used once. Players could already use it even if they were just level 1. And this was the only item given to them in the beginning. Players could also consume this item once they thought of the word use in their minds. Yo-min was the first one to use it and his face was amazed by what he saw. The angel then laughed once again as she noticed that some of the players were not pleased with the things that they got from the rune. She then explained that they can't really do anything about it but to accept as this was their luck. And after explaining the runes, she flicked her fingers as they were about to get into the real thing. Light particles started to materialize all over the place. All of the players were then informed by a notification about their first mission. And it was something that was kinda expected for players to encounter at the start of the game. All they needed to do was to kill 100 goblins each. Out of all the participants all over the world, only half of them would be allowed to survive after this round. A few moments later, the first goblin has been summoned. The players saw this and they commented that this really looked like a virtual reality game. This angel then warned everyone that they should not get excited about it. And this was because she just summoned a whole bunch of them in one go. The whole area was starting to get filled with these rays of light. The calmness on their faces then faded. People started to panic as they saw the numbers of the goblins in front of them. With a more sinister expression combined with an ominous aura, the angel has announced a battle between 10,000 humans versus 50,000 goblins. This will be their fight to the death. As soon as the statement ended, the horde of goblins started making their way towards the humans. The speed of these monsters were remarkably fast. Some of the players didn't know how to react. But as most of them started stepping backwards, notable footsteps were heard. Black Scythe has stepped in front of the battle with no fear at all. The people behind our MC then started wondering what this guy was thinking. Facing the goblins head-on was just too dangerous. As the monster drew closer, the calm expression that Black Scythe had was gone, and it was replaced with this murderous look. Our MC dashed towards the goblin and performed a powerful kick. Black Scythe has noted that when someone was a part of a group, the first impression was the most important. And what he had done just now made all of these guys shocked. All he wanted to was to imprint the image of his power on their minds. And the best thing to execute this was to defeat the very first goblin. With that powerful kick, the body of the goblin got sent a few meters away. Our MC then picked up the dagger that this monster was holding. In his mind, he really needed to avoid being swarmed by pesky flies, so he needed to show them how strong he is. And aside from that, there's still one more important thing he needed to get. That one was the attention of the angel that was assigned in their group, which right now looked amused on what our MC had displayed. Black Scythe had no other way but to show a bit of a performance in front of everyone. The two goblins that dashed in his way got slashed in an instant. Other players were now wondering if Black Scythe was some kind of a secret agent in real life. They also thought that his nickname was really cool. And since our MC had displayed his strength against the goblins, they got the idea that maybe these monsters were the weakest mobs they could encounter. Some of them became complacent and thought that they could also easily defeat these monsters. But that quickly changed as one goblin had managed to get near this one player. With just one attack, the said weakest mobs managed to take them down. The reality about their situation has finally kicked in. This was really not the part where they could chill and expect that they could easily survive. And while that guy was being killed by the goblin, all the people started to disperse and run for their lives. Our MC got a glimpse of how the others were doing. This scene was one of the things he branded as the greetings of Inferno. At this point, no one would ever mistake this for a game anymore. Right now, there's only one thought on people's minds. And that was the concept of survival. The once carefree humans that dominated the food chain had been turned into preys. The first instinct upon seeing this danger was to run away with no sense of direction. Black Scythe recalled that this was the same mistake he had made the first time. And only after the 2ND regression did he finally manage to face the harsh reality. And that was no matter how fast someone could run, they could never escape this dimension. This lady was not aware that there's this invisible wall that would hinder them from covering more distance from the goblins. She then stopped on her tracks and wondered what she should do next. This situation was also a wake-up call for the modern people. With everything being given to them easily by the use of technology, their instincts of killing other creatures were almost non-existent. Some of them would hesitate on taking their first kill. However, having second thoughts inside this game would be proven to be fatal, because it could give the monsters the smallest chance to turn things around and have their counterattacks. A few minutes have passed and some of the humans have exceeded their limitations. But they were still in a dire situation. The angel continued watching the fight with amusement. She claimed that goblins may be just the size of a human kid, but players would still have a hard time killing them, especially when they come in swarms and armed with daggers. But as most of the people were struggling, a certain individual caught her attention. And that was Black Scythe. This made her wonder what's the deal with this human. The angel then checked his progress and found out that our MC had already killed 70 goblins. It then annoyed her because the system could only show the progress of this player to her, nothing more, nothing less. But she decided to let this matter go, as she didn't expect that some of the mere humans would have a noble like her be interested in watching over them. The battle against these monsters continued. And every time a player defeats one goblin, they would gain experience points and golds, which would eventually make them level up. As for our MC's progress, he has now killed 75 goblins. And he continued to show his remarkable skills while dodging all of the goblins' weapons. Another horde was now rushing towards him. But every single one of them just met a quick and powerful thrust from Black Scythe's dagger. This guy's hand was now tainted by the blood of the monsters. which made some of them hesitate from attacking and approaching him. But our MC didn't show any mercy and continued the onslaught. One attack was enough to defeat them. His eyes grew more intimidating as he looked for more goblins to slay. This was also the time when Black Scythe had noticed that the goblins were backing out against him. And since no one was attacking him, he thought he could use this time to take a breather first. He checked his status window once again and revealed that he was now level 4. He also has 6 extra stat points. Players would receive 2 extra stat points when they level up. And our MC allotted all of it towards his agility stat. And that was because this stat would not only raise his dodge rate but also increase his attack and movement speed. Nothing's more important than agility in the beginning. After that, Black Scythe thought that with this kind of progress, he would surely get the attention of the angel now. He wondered how he should end the first mission. One circling dagger was then thrown and landed on one of the goblins. Our MC addressed the goblins once again and asked if they would really not come at him. This provocation proved not to be effective as the goblins were still not moving on their positions. Black Scythe sighed as he realized this. He knew that he had really no other choice. But in a swift movement, our MC vanished from his position. This guy had already traveled the distance across this group of goblins just to get the dagger he threw on this one. These monsters took them a few seconds to realize what happened. But as they turned around, they were met with this devastating round slash. All of them were cut in half. Killing the group of goblins has sealed the deal for our MC. He leveled up once again. The system also notified him that he just finished the requirement for the first mission. A ray of golden light then surrounded Black Scythe. This confirmed that he was done. Our MC thought that the first round has always been this easy. All he needed to do was to exert additional effort to get the attention of the angel. After that, he was congratulated by the system for being the first one and completing the quest in their given zone. Black Scythe also got first place across all the zones. His total time was 10 minutes and 21 seconds. This guy had this satisfied smile on his face as he managed to get the rank 1 again. This will be proven to be useful because the top 3 players who would finish each mission would get some sort of reward. His reward for being the rank 1 in his given zone was this lowest rank rare weapon selection coupon. As for the reward of ranking first all over the zones, our MC got this special reward selection box. These items would clearly ensure a huge advantage against the other players. And the first one that Black Scythe decided to use was the weapon coupon. The system then showed him a list of following rare weapons in which he could choose from. He then felt ashamed as he was now back on using these low-ranked weapons. But still thankful to have these in the beginning. Our MC then clicked one of the choices. And the weapon that he chose was the stiletto. This weapon was considered to be the best dagger available to beginners. It also has an attack power of 15 and additional agility stat. After receiving the item, our MC threw the dagger he got from the goblins. As for the other reward, he planned on opening it later. And while Black Scythe was busy checking all the rewards he got, the other players were still being hunted by the goblins. Our MC also checked his status window and noticed something different this time. This guy was referring to the title he received earlier called Last Time Regressor. He thought that he had never seen this in the past 99 tries. Back when they were asked to use the rune, our MC had also consumed his. And the rune he got was the rune of regression, which was the same thing he got from the very first time. This was the item that allowed him to reach up to this point. Upon consuming, the rune was immediately imprinted to his body. The only thing that was different now was the error that the rune was receiving. Our MC had already expected this because he knew that he couldn't regress infinitely. The rune has also confirmed that this was his 100th regression, which caught the attention of Black Scythe. This was also the time he got the title of Last Time Regressor. In this game, titles are superordinate concepts of runes. Last Time Regressor could only be obtained at the 100th regression of a certain individual. And it would allow the user to stay in soul form for 1 minute. The user could then be resurrected at any desired point in time with his health restored. He then remembered that the skill of resurrection could only be seen as the priest's skill. Even that only restores up to 30% of their health. RMC figured that the title he got this time could really be proven to be useful. And having something like this in his disposal would really help him clear the game this time. Since this title was one of a kind and seemed to be really rare, Black Scythe decided to set it in private. This setting will prevent any other players or beings from seeing this information. RMC stretched out his hands as he figured that the other players that passed the mission should be coming out soon. He also wondered how Yo Min was doing. As he searched the area, he saw this guy who luckily was holding on. Black Scythe then figures that Yo Min will be surviving this round too. After a few more moments, several golden lights have appeared all throughout the area. The angel was still watching and smirked as she figured why the battlefield felt a little boring for her taste. Turns out, the number of goblins have really decreased as more and more people were able to kill 100 of them. The thrill of fighting a horde of monsters was gone. This holy being then apologized for her mistake. She promised that she would make it more fun again. Hearing her ironic words left the other survivors in tears. They knew that this meant some trouble. Meanwhile, the bodies of the dead players have started fading away. More people have also noticed this and they wondered why this was happening. And while they were worrying about their friends and comrades, another bright light had been summoned. This was the first time that seeing a golden light didn't mean salvation. Another horde of goblins have started rushing towards the players. Their faces were now filled with fear. These ones were already tired from the previous batch. The angel revealed her maniac face again and told them that she just refilled another 50,000 goblins for these humans to feast. Since they really didn't have any choice but to fight, the remaining players met them head-on. The peaceful open field soon turned into a bloody one. Monsters did their best to fulfill their role in this mission. But at the same time, players gritted their teeth and found a way to survive. As time passed by, the number of humans who were passing the mission increased. Yo Min was also shown, but this guy used other people to be his shield against the attacks of the goblins. Desperate times called for desperate measures. Another 1,000 participants just passed. And all the while, Black Scythe just sat there and closed his eyes. He was already fed up with this scene. People losing lives had been a common situation as this was his 100th time of playing the game. Once the participants had passed, they were not allowed to help the ones that were still taking the mission. This angel had continued watching this like it was some kind of entertainment. A few moments went by and RMC opened his eyes. This was because they were notified that the whole 5,143 participants had already cleared the mission. There were also these unlucky ones who survived but didn't manage to kill 1,000 goblins. They wondered where all the monsters went. The angel took all of their attention as she announced that the quest was completed. She then started apologizing to the unlucky ones as what was about to happen next was purely the rules of the game. Their bodies started fading as well. These guys were bound to die. Some begged for another chance as they only needed a few more goblins to kill. But their pleas were not heard. This holy being clapped her hands as the first round of the games concluded. She told the ones who survived that they should all be happy because they passed. She chuckled as she congratulated the remaining humans. She also wished them best of luck towards the next mission. Before the players could leave, the results of the mission were shown. The one who got first place was RMC. As for the other players, they all have some interesting nicknames. The system announced the achievement of Black Scythe. Another 1,000 gold will also be given to him aside from the 2 earlier rewards. RMC received the gold and it informed him that he could use the currency on buying some items once he reached level 10. He also noticed that there were now more eyes that became wary of his presence. And that was really his plan. He wanted to show everyone that he's in the first place. The angel then butted in and commented that she had never expected that the one who'll be ranked first will be inside her zone. She then addressed Black Scythe and wanted him to answer her question. This holy being asked how he became this strong and inquired if he received a powerful rune. But before she could finish her question, she stopped herself and figured that this question was a mistake. Blackside then teased her and asked if she could see his rune by looking at his status window. The angel panicked and then lied about this information. She pretended that she could also see the rune that our MC received. But the only one who knew that this was just an alibi was this guy who just smiled at her and didn't answer her questions. And to turn things around, Black Scythe got her attention and asked for a favor. This situation was now becoming more unpredictable towards the angel. She had no idea that this man had lived in the same situations 99 times. RMC then held his head up high as he revealed his dissatisfaction towards the reward he got from getting the first place of this mission. He commented that they were too stingy. This statement shocked everyone that was around him. They didn't expect someone would even dare to ask for more rewards in front of this merciless angel. And as expected, the mood of the angel turned sour as she asked RMC what he just said. But this scene didn't intimidate Black Scythe even for just a bit. He even complied and repeated the same words he said a while ago. He would like to have better rewards. RMC's smug attitude was slowly getting on the nerves of this angel. But as everyone was already panicking in the back of their minds, these two just stared at each other. As for this angel, she wondered if this human was already underestimating her just because he ranked first in this mission. She can't accept the fact that a mere human dared to ask her some demands. She then raised her hand as she planned to blow him up. But she stopped as she remembered that she just used that authority previously. This means that she will not be able to kill RMC. Another idea came into her mind as she was staring at Black Scythe. She knew that this should be enough to get rid of him. The angel then slowly approached RMC while repeating his demands. She even descended and walked on the ground. She explained that usually, things like that would be rejected right away. But she informed Black Scythe that she would think about it. And that would require them to talk in private. Other humans could wait for them until they came back. As they walked further away from the others, some of them commended Black Scythe. His negotiation really worked with an angel. They now wondered what kind of rewards he will be getting next. And among the people who stared at RMC's back was young men. This guy felt the gaze and returned the favor. This confused young men and wondered if there's something he was not getting. But then, RMC continued walking while having this grin on his face. Meanwhile, these two have already covered considerable distance away from the other participants. They were now inside the forest. The angel then commanded RMC that he should walk closer to her since she was getting tired of checking if he was still with her. In the back of her mind, she was already belittling the humans. She thought that this race needed to be yelled at before they understood things. She also branded them as greedy and stupid. And while walking, she thought that there's really nothing she could do about the rewards because she was not even the one who set them. And since she thought that Black Scythe had become too greedy, she planned to teach her a lesson. Right behind that rock was the place where the system couldn't detect them. So she wanted to kill him when they reached that point. The angel knew that there would be consequences if the higher-ups found out that she killed one of the participants because of her personal reasons. But right now, she was just too annoyed not to act. And to make sure that this will really be a flawless plan, she isolated RMC so there will be no witness. This angel had this maniac smile as she was getting too excited. She thought that this human should have just kept quiet. She then turned around to check RMC. She also asked what kind of rewards he was hoping to get. But as she fixed her gaze towards Black Scythe, all she saw was a fist heading at an extreme speed towards her face. And the satisfying punch has landed. Fair and square. This was the kind of main protagonist I was waiting for. No matter if you are an angel or even a god, those who showed a bitchy attitude should be taught a lesson. This holy being turned into holy shit in an instant. Last episode, we left the overseer of the game being put into her respective place. This was the time when she realized that she was not that almighty and invincible in front of humans. Her expression turned grim as she looked at the golden blood that came out from here. She wondered if a human had really dared to lay a hand on her. As soon as it became clear, she turned herself around to retaliate. But there's no one behind her. Black Scythe was already missing in her sight. That split second was all our MC needed to appear and to catch the angel off guard. Black Scythe grabbed one of her wings. And this immediately freaked the angel. She knew what was about to happen. But even then, she still screamed and asked what this human was about to do with her. She also pleaded for him to stop. The only thing was that our MC was really merciless. He didn't care about her and he snapped the wings like it was kind of fragile. The angel almost lost consciousness from the pain she felt in that instant. And as Black Scythe tore it even further, the golden blood splattered all over the place. Have you guys seen an angel without wings? Well, this is it. With a cold stare and expression, our MC told her to stop being a crybaby. Black Scythe didn't stop there and he grabbed another wing. He pulled this one again as the angel screamed. All of the wings were now done. Black Scythe commented that with this, she wouldn't be able to run anymore. He also asked if this feeling hurt the angel. And of course, she answered yes. It was like another limb was just torn from her body. Our MC then revealed that in 5 more minutes, it would have been her who was asking these kinds of questions. If her plan worked out, she would have been laughing all this time. The angel then tried denying these claims and exclaimed that he had gone too insane. And that was the time when Black Scythe revealed the hidden dagger behind the wings. He claimed that this angel would have stabbed him in the back using this weapon. And because the angel got speechless, our MC confirmed her intentions. But she was still trying to talk her way out of the situation. Black Scythe then smiled and told her that she didn't really need to lie because he could already tell just by looking at her face. He also addressed the angel as Burial. Hearing this statement made Burial confused. She then asked our MC how he knew her name. But all this guy answered was she really didn't need to know. At the same time, he brought his newly acquired dagger out of the storage space. Burial panicked upon seeing this. She asked why our MC had brought his weapon out all of a sudden. She then threatened our MC about blowing his head off using her skill. She claimed that just by snapping her fingers, things could end badly for him. But Black Scythe already knew that she can't use the said skill anymore as she had already used it a while ago. This was also the reason why he got confident. As for Burial, all she could do was grit her teeth. She had no other options now. But this angel didn't just give up. She claimed that other angels would know if she was killed and her comrades will take revenge against Black Scythe. The only problem was that our MC knew that all angels are egoists who don't care for other people's business. And they wouldn't also care if one of them was killed or not. Our MC was about to execute her now, but she tried giving him reasons not to do it. She claimed that doing this wouldn't benefit him at all. On top of that, Black Scythe wouldn't be able to return home. But as we have said earlier, he already knew that all of these words were not true. As for the final offer, the angel claimed that she could give him all the information this guy needed for all of the missions. But Black Scythe didn't really need it. He had already ran through all of these things 99 times and all of the events were already imprinted into his mind. Besides, if he needed information, he could have just tortured her until she spits out all of the knowledge she had. After that statement, the angel was put to a state of shock as the dagger on our MC's hand landed straight to her chest. This right here is a clear statement that people should really be careful as they could mess up with the wrong person. Burial fell on the ground as soon as the dagger was pulled out of her body. A system notification then appeared and it confirmed that our MC had just defeated an angel. He was also the very first player to have done this thing. As a reward, he was granted the title of First Angel Slayer. On top of that, 2 items materialized on his hands. One of them was called the Angel's Blood. And the red rune was called the Rune of Slaughterer. Black Scythe immediately used the rune and it was imprinted onto his body. Back to the title of being the First Angel Slayer, its effect was that it would double all of the stats of the player. Our MC then remembered that the first time he found out about the rewards of killing angels was when he was in his 13th regression. He got his revenge against one of them and the items appeared. As for the Butcher Rune, also known as Rune of Slaughterer, its effect was every time a target is killed, all stats increase by 1% and it has a maximum of 100%. Black Scythe smiled as he looked at the things he got. Each reward was already comparable to a unique item. He thought that the other angels would have been shocked as soon as they found out that he already acquired another rune. His expression changed quickly as he thought that there's still one more reason why he killed Burial. And that was to acquire this item that was enveloped with golden light. This right here was the angel's blood. It's a consumable item and it could change the user's class to Reaper. The only requirement was that the player should be at least a certain level. In this game, all players can obtain a class starting at level 10. There are a total of 30 different classes, and changing classes is simple. All the players needed to do was to acquire a class change item. It's usually acquired naturally through hunting or fulfilling simple conditions. But there's always exceptions, and that's when changing to a unique class, which is only given to one player who obtains it under special circumstances. The main example for this was the angel's blood, which would turn the player to a Reaper. And of course, unique classes are on a completely different level than regular classes. Bonus stat, advancement runes, skill compositions, and many more. Our MC was really glad to have everything back even though the first mission was not even done yet. As he checked his status window, he used the special reward from being ranked 1 in all of the zones. These were the choices he could get. And among these choices, the only thing he needed was the one that could help him reach level 10 as quickly as possible so he could change his class. And that was the 3 times experience buff. This effect will be applied on the 2ND mission automatically. Things were all going really well this time around. Blackscythe then looked at the fallen angel and figured that this was his last shot on clearing the game. To do this, he was willing to do everything that was necessary to make him stronger. After a few more moments, the first round of the mission has finally ended. The total survivors among all of the regions were around 900 million. And the ones inside the zone of our MC were around 5,000. This announcement also revealed that they will now be transferred back to their original body on the other dimension. The next mission will occur on February 1st, 2023. Yo Min grasped for air as he woke up from his deep slumber. He immediately looked around and thought that he just slept right in the middle of the city at the New Year Bell event. His face was then filled with confusion as he thought of what just happened. All he could think of was that he just had this weird dream. This was also the same for all the other people who were present in that area. Yo Min checked his phone and he saw that it was already 5:20 a.m. It was the same amount of time passed in his dream. His friends were also starting to wake up and they complained the same pain from their head and body. These guys then exchanged information with each other and they have confirmed that the same dream happened to everyone. They also panicked as they wanted to know why these were all happening to them. All they could conclude for now was that this was really not a dream. More and more people are now starting to realize this fact. And they wondered if they would be sent again to another dimension on the first day of February. But as time passed by, some of them also noticed that the other people who were around them were not waking up. One of Yomin's friend named Taeshik was not moving. This guy then approached his friend and called his name. Taeshik's face was then revealed. And it was already pale. The lifelessness of his body was already evident. This was the time when they tried denying this situation among themselves. But as they realized that it was all real, they started trembling. This guy told his group that Taeshik was not breathing and he couldn't also feel his pulse. Yo Min was startled as he figured that their friend had died. A conclusion then came into their minds that maybe he was not able to survive the mission against the goblins. The bald guy then looked around the area and realized that there were still other people who had not woken up. Most of them then panicked as these people lying on the ground were all corpses now. Fear enveloped their body as they figured that only half of them had survived the onslaught. Yo Min could also be seen trembling. Sweat also formed on his face as he thought that this situation was just too insane. It then occurred to this guy that no matter what the status of the people were, they were bound to live equally now. Regardless if they were born with a golden spoon in their mouth or not. The game has just eliminated the cry for humans to call life unfair. Yo Min then tried calming his friends down. He told them that they just needed to make sure that they could survive each mission. He also added that this thing that happened was the same for all of them. So they didn't really need to feel unfair about it. His comments made his friends think of him as an insane bastard. The bald guy sighed and told Yo Min that he just fulfilled his dream of being a thug and that's the reason why he was not feeling anything. As for the others, they still have different things they wanted to do. The guy also noticed that Yo Min was not listening to his words. Yo Min was busy looking for someone around the crowd. And it was none other than our MC. In his mind, he knew that his errand boy was just there standing near them. But right now, he was nowhere to be found. Yeoman then concluded that maybe his errand boy didn't survive the mission. He smiled as he thought that this was just natural because that guy was just too frail and weak to defeat 100 goblins all by himself. But then, something caught his attention. Yeoman saw one guy that had weird equipment on his shoulder. He wondered what's the deal with this one and where the hell did he get those tacky clothes from. He swallowed his saliva as soon as he realized one thing. Yeoman thought of using the status window like the one inside the game and it really appeared. Right now, this guy reached level 5 and all of his stat points were placed towards his strength stat. He can't believe that he could really access this feature even outside the game. His friend heard him talking about it and they also tried accessing theirs. These ones got the same shock reaction on their faces. All of the people who survived the mission then did the same. They figured that this kind of thing can apply in reality as well. To confirm this, Yeoman picked up one of the stones on the ground. He clenched his fist and he was able to crush the sturdy rock. He was fascinated seeing this scene. It was as if he was still dreaming. And after a few seconds, his fascination turned into something more grim. He claimed that this was just too awesome. After that, all of the news outlets in Korea have started covering the news about this unusual phenomenon. It was revealed that over 10,000 civilians suddenly lost consciousness simultaneously. A clip was also shown depicting the arrival of burial in the city. Someone also managed to record the second when one man's head just exploded right in front of them. And as the video progressed, the said angel had extended her arms towards the civilians. The next thing they knew was that these people suddenly fell asleep. Police reports also confirmed that most of the collapsed civilians were within the range of 15 to 29 years old. This phenomenon also happens all over the world. The people who were not included in the game have started panicking and posting their questions in social media. They were all confused. Some even claim that these were just fake and just CGI. But one person knew that what's happening right now was about to change the whole world altogether. The first mission was done and more things will start happening. RMC claimed that this was just the beginning. The articles about deaths will also be flowing out non-stop. With just one night, 11% of the population has died. As this guy was heading back home, he thought that the real problem still lies elsewhere. The survivors of this weird phenomenon were now being called as players. And the cause of it was now being investigated. On top of that, the abilities of the so-called players have been transferred over into reality. Right now, it is a relief that there's still no player with a high enough stat to change things in their reality. But as time passes by, some of these players would level up and could end up becoming transcendent entities. No matter what modern weapons others use, they will never stand a chance against the players. All of them will soon be called human weapons. As for RMC, he had no plans on watching the world crumble into pieces. If he would leave everything out on their course, the Earth would fall into ruin even before the 20th round. The only solution that this guy had in mind was that he needs to control the players. And that was by using overwhelming power. In his 99th attempt, RMC already had this overwhelming power with him. But the thing that made him fail was that he was fighting all battles alone. He needed another 4 players to complete the last one. With a more determined expression, he thought that he already had a couple of people with potential in his mind. He also thought of methods on how he could recruit them already. But because the game has just started, he wouldn't dare to act yet. In his mind, there's still more important things he needs to take care of. I also forgot to tell you that his name in this reality was Ryumen. And we would be addressing our MC with that name now. Ryumen then went towards this apartment building. He opened one of the apartment rooms as this was where he lives. And upon entering, he noticed something inside. It was an empty cup of ramen. He claimed that a certain individual ate this unhealthy food once again. Ryumen proceeded to open one door and he peeked inside. A guy that looked like him was soundly asleep. Their only difference was their hair. RMC smiled as he thought that his younger brother was able to sleep soundly even though he was still not home. The guy that was sleeping was Riwon. He's the younger brother of RMC who will be turning into a third-year middle schooler soon. Their family was claimed to be a typical one. But all of that changed as their parents passed away in a traffic accident. The only ones who were left for each other were the two of them. Even at a young age, Ryumin was forced to become the guardian of his younger brother. Ryuin had these noticeable bruises and bandages all over his body. And RMC never knew about these before he regressed. He then decided to start changing things around by turning the lights back on. Ryumin greeted his brother and told him that it was now time to wake up. His younger brother then checked his phone and saw that it was only 6 a.m. But him tucking back to bed was really not happening as RMC pulled the mattress below him. He claimed that they didn't have much time to spare and he would just explain things while they were going out. Ryuin was still drowsy while asking his brother what's the reason behind all of these. His expression then changed as he heard his brother's voice turn into a more serious tone. This was because this guy revealed that the world was now in chaos. As for Ryuin, all he knew was that his brother went out to watch the New Year Bell celebration. He asked if something happened. RMC then told him to come on out first and he'll tell him everything as they walk. A few moments later, these two were now walking down the street. Ryuin stared at his brother intently, wondering if something bad happened. This was one of the rare cases his brother had a serious face. RMC then spoke and told him that one really had no idea what's happening in the world right now. This statement made one more curious and asked if something happened while he was asleep. Min then commanded him to take out his phone and check the current op search. This guy followed his older brother and really brought out his phone. He read the articles about an angel appearing and kidnapping civilians to another world. RMC then corrected him. He claimed that taking their souls was more accurate. One was then startled as he found out that his brother was one of the guys that were taken away. He also found out that RMC only survived because he was able to kill 100 goblins. One was about to check if his brother was just alright, but he was stopped as RMC told him not to worry about him. This one then exclaimed as he couldn't just not worry about his brother. Right when their parents died, everything changed. For one, the only family he got was his older brother. And even when they were still grieving, his older brother took all the responsibility. Ryumin had to be strong so they could continue living. And until now, his older brother was the only person he knew that became the most mentally strong individual ever. But even then, he still couldn't fathom the idea that his brother had really killed 100 goblins. He thought that his brother must have a weak side too. RMC then cut his younger brother's chain of thoughts as he already knew what he was thinking. Since he was doubting his physical strength, Ryumin revealed that inside the gang were stats that improved their abilities. This was the reason he became strong enough to pass the mission. He also claimed that when Ryuin sees what he was about to do later, all of his doubts will vanish. But the worry in his mind still lingered. The younger brother then stopped walking and claimed that he would not be following RMC until he told him where they were going. With a more desperate expression, he requested to know this information first. The bruises that were tried to be hidden under these bandages then became more visible. RMC had this empty expression on his face as he remembered something in the past. He then uttered the name Bang Taeju. Hearing this, Ryuin was shocked. Ryumin turned around with this expression then revealed that they will be going to Bang Taeju's hideout. The same place where Ryuin's class's head delinquent was staying. RMC had finally revealed that he knew that his younger brother was being bullied. Ryuin panicked as he was not expecting him to know about it. He tried his best hiding it from him. This was because he didn't want to cause any unnecessary trouble for his older brother who was already having a hard time. But the burden really lies on Ryumin. He was constantly trying to apologize to his younger brother because he had let this situation happen. His past self really had no idea that this was happening. He was too caught up in being bullied himself and juggling his studies and work at the same time. The first time he learned about the truth was after returning from his very first round. RMC had spent a day sleeping as he was traumatized from his battle against the goblins. That day, Ryuin went outside to go somewhere. The next thing RMC knew was that his phone was ringing non-stop. He reluctantly got up and answered the call, and it was about Ryuin. His eyes widened in shock as the person at the other side of the call told him that she should immediately go to the hospital. That same day, he rushed as he found out that his brother got involved in an incident. Ryuin came back to their house alive, but he was already blind from the beating he got from Taijаю. RMC had regretted that day and blamed himself for being too weak and foolish. He was not able to protect his only family in this world. But ever since he regressed, he changed Ryuin's fate and saved him in every single timeline. He promised that no one would ever be able to hurt him again. Meanwhile, at this abandoned factory near their neighborhood, someone was being beat up. One person who had this blonde hair claimed that these three individuals that were in front of him failed to bring him 200,000 won each. And because their bodies hurt too much, they did not even have the strength to give out their reasons. This then resulted in this person continuing what he had been doing. There were also 3 other men who were just there standing and watched how their friend taught them some lessons. They thought that Taijaya was just too ruthless. One person claimed that even the students from the higher years didn't dare to mess with him. And that's the reason they shouldn't get on his bad side. Taijaya then commented that these guys were all useless as they failed his request. The money that he had expected to get from them was allotted towards a motorcycle he had been eyeing for a long time. He then approached the other 3 and asked them if they knew some ways to get some money. These guys then started brainstorming. But providing an easy way of having money would be really difficult. Until this guy thought of something. He then suggested that Taijaya should ask some money to his personal errand boy, the tall one with curly hair. Taijaya then smiled as he remembered Riwon. He claimed that he was already planning on calling him today as he will be celebrating the new year with him. These guys then teased Taijaya and suggested that he could just rob him blindly. But Taijaya revealed that Riwon was practically homeless. He added that his errand boy wouldn't be able to bring him any money even if he beat him up. His house also looked worn down. Hearing this situation then disappointed these 3. They kind of felt bad, especially when they found out that Ryuan didn't even have parents anymore. Taijaya continued telling them that the only family that boy has was his older brother. But then, Taijaya stopped talking as he fixed his gaze onto something. Turns out, Ryuan and our MC have finally arrived in this abandoned warehouse. Taijaya smiled as he realized that there's really nothing to be afraid of, especially with Ryuan's presence. He then approached Ryuan and told him that they were just speaking about him right now. But in an instant, this guy's mood changed and tried intimidating Ryuan. This guy then immediately apologized while his older brother was standing beside him. Taijaya noticed our MC's presence and wondered about his identity. He thought that his face was kinda annoying him a bit. He then addressed Ryuan and asked who's this person he came with. And because he was a little bit scared of Taijaya, he couldn't even answer him straight. Our MC then spoke and introduced himself as Ryuan's older brother. Taijaya got annoyed because he specifically told Ryuan to never snitch on him. He then warned him that he would now be teaching his older brother a lesson as well. This fat guy then gave a look towards one of his minions. These 3 immediately walked and approached our MC's direction. They asked him if he was somewhat good at fighting. Ryuman just stood there while waiting for these guys to come closer. One of them even teased him for being a little bit shorter than his younger brother. But this stopped immediately as the guy met with Ryuman's fist. The other guys were startled because their friend got defeated just by 1 punch. This one tried to get revenge and charged right through. The only problem was that his attacks were always missing. Our MC had enough of it, so he counterattacked. And it was a clean hit. The thug was then sent flying towards these metallic drums. As for the other one, he tried charging in as well. But as expected, a quick punch was given to his face. The 3 minions were now on the ground and were struggling to get up. Meanwhile, Taijaya still had this sinister smile with him. He claimed that this scene was too trashy. In his mind, Ryuman may have learned some boxing skills. But he wondered if that was already enough to fight against him. He then walked towards them and praised Ryuman for winning against his minions using some boxing skills. But as he stood in front of our MC, this one claimed that it seemed that he didn't learn that physicality is also very important in boxing. Ryuman just smiled as this person in front of him still had no idea what just happened around the world. Taijaya got curious, so he asked about it. But Ryuman just scoffed off. Having his question being ignored made this guy furious. He then charged a punch towards our MC. And as usual, these normal punches have no chance of hitting a player like him. Taijaya continued throwing these punches. He was getting annoyed the more he tried to hit him. His eyesight was already getting blurry from the exhaustion he was feeling. All of the punches he threw didn't hit his target. He also wondered what was happening as he couldn't even land anything. As for our MC, he charged his fist with this blue aura. He then commented that if Taijaya had been watching the news, he wouldn't dare to fight against him. After that statement, Ryuman's punch landed straight to this fatso's face. Again kids, you should never bully someone unless you want to experience these kinds of paybacks. Even with Taijaya's heavy body, RMC was still able to send him a few meters back. But it turned out to be not enough to make this guy unconscious. Taijaya then rushed towards Ryuman to have his counterattack. But he was not able to hit anything. The punch was thrown in this empty space. This guy wondered where his target went, and then right at the side of his face, a bright light appeared again. Another punch landed and he's not able to react. Even if he was clearly at a disadvantage, Taijaya was still claiming that RMC has no match for him. He then tried stopping the blood that was coming from his mouth, and then his tooth fell. This made him furious and shouted that he would make sure that he'll kill Ryuman. The fatso tried landing another punch, but it was easily evaded. RMC then grabbed his hand and directed it to another direction. This caused Taijaya to lose his balance and receive another barrage of attacks. And while this was all happening, the other guys who were being bullied by Taijaya were watching. This guy then thought that maybe Ryuman was targeting his face on purpose. He looked at his opponent and saw his smug and confident face. Taijaya was now wishing to land a hit on this guy even once. He rushed again towards Ryuman. He already had this struggling face with him while saying the word please. But then, a powerful kick landed. Taijaya was sent flying towards the wall. This guy was already at his limit. He didn't have enough stamina to sustain this fight. On top of that, the attacks that he had been receiving were not easy to take. With a more annoyed expression, RMC asked this bully if he was feeling hurt. Ryuman had recalled the day when he saw his younger brother blinded. And even with all the regressions he had all these times, that was one of the scenes that he could never forget. The fatso was now asking RMC not to get any closer to him. He protected his neck from another kick and pleaded for Ryuman to stop. But then, all RMC did was to hold his hand, which made Taijaya confused. Ryuman smiled, but right now, his eyes were filled with terror. He exclaimed that this was the very same reason that he shouldn't have messed with his little bro. A streak of pain was felt after that statement. It was so sudden that it made this guy just stare at it. After a few seconds, the pain finally registered to his brain and he screamed loudly. Multiple fingers were now broken. And while he was still crying for the broken ones, RMC grabbed his other hand. Taijaya's eyes were filled with fear. He repeatedly screamed the word no. Seeing this kind of scene also made Taijaya's minions run away. They knew that they would be in a lot more trouble if they stayed. Ryuan also turned his head around because he didn't want to see what his brother was doing to Taijaya. RMC warned this guy again if he would mess with his younger brother. I think this was more than enough lesson for today. Taijaya was already regretting his decisions in life. All of his fingers got broken today. Hearing him confirming it made Ryuman smile. But he still has that creepy smile on his face. He then grabbed Taijaya's other arm and broke it once more. He said that he needed to make sure just in case this fatso thought of getting some kind of revenge. A loud scream was then heard all throughout the neighborhood. After that encounter with Taijaya, the two brothers casually walked out of the scene. Ryuan asked his older brother how he had done that. He thought that maybe he learned some kind of martial arts or something. But RMC denied this and told him that it was still because he became a player. The stats can be used to enhance their abilities in real life as well. And to really make his brother believe it, Ryuman tried summoning the weapon that he got last round. A golden bright light emerged and slowly took form. Ryuan was startled as a dark and sharp dagger really materialized. This guy was now beaming with amazement. Ryuman also added that all players could summon their weapons like this. And that's the time when Ryuan realized that the reason why his brother was moving too fast was because of the same thing. He didn't even have a hard time dodging all of those attacks. RMC revealed that he was able to move like that because his dex stat was around 11. Normal people only have around 3 and athletes are around 10. Ryuan asked what happens when his brother levels up more, but RMC pretended that he didn't know anything as he hadn't reached that point yet. This guy was now willing to lie about this information because of what happened in his previous transgression. Back then at his 11th transgression, he told his younger brother that he was a regressor. And this has put Ryuan in danger. Some players kidnapped him for the sake of controlling RMC. Even though he was able to save him that time, he wouldn't want Ryuan to experience that kind of trauma again. While staring at his brother, Ryuman thought that he should prepare more on protecting him against other players. To start things off, he asked this guy if he would want to have breakfast at the convenience store. Ryuan gladly accepted the invitation, so they went inside the QS24 shop. The younger brother called the attention of Ryuman as he was heading towards a different direction. He pointed out that the cup noodles were over that direction. But our MC headed towards the ATM first to withdraw some money. While clicking the buttons, he thought that this was all he had saved until now. It was a total of 133,201. This was only around $100. Ryuman withdrew 100,001. Ryuan was shocked to see that his brother withdrew so much money. This was the reality that these two brothers have lived a hard life. RMC just told him that he would need it for something later. Meanwhile, he asked Ryuan what he would want to eat. This guy hesitated on telling what he liked because all of the food in this area was expensive. But his older brother assured him that he could get all the food that he wanted. This was Ryuman's way of making up for him because all he had last night was just a cup of noodles. Even then, he was still hesitating because they might end up having no money for the upcoming days. When all things were sorted out, Ryuan got this chili pork belly. He claimed that he really wanted to eat this for a long time now. And the happiness on his face could already be seen. This made our MC smile, and then he told Ryuan that they should eat Hanu beef sometime and order it. Hearing this made Ryuan feel awkward again. He told his older brother that this chili pork belly was more than enough for him. Meanwhile, in this guy's mind, in a few more days they could already eat whatever they want. After a few moments, the two were now eating their breakfast. The pork belly really looked delicious. Ryuan then took his first bite. His face was glowing because of how tasty it was. And while they were eating, Ryuman stood up and told his younger brother that he just needed to do something important. Ryuan just stared at his brother and checked where he was going. A few seconds later, RMC came back with this ball pen in his hand. Ryuan was startled as he saw that his brother just bought a lot of Nato tickets. All of the remaining money that they had was spent on buying 20 tickets. The younger brother was really shocked as that would total to 100,001. But while this guy was panicking, RMC just continued to check all the numbers that he could remember. He commanded Ryuan to just wait and see. Ryuan got more confused as he saw what his brother was doing with the tickets. RMC just picked the same numbers over and over again. He then smiled and revealed that the reason why he did this was because these were the winning numbers. If I would also be a regressor, I would surely do the same. Later that night, the two were back to their apartment. Ryuan was glued to his phone as he was watching the Nato draw for that day. This guy was even biting his nails because he was too nervous. He thought that they may have just wasted 100,001. The drawing of numbers then started. Ryuman scolded his younger brother about this habit. But as the host announced the lucky numbers, Ryuan stopped. The first number was 3, then 8. The third number is 9, then 38. All of the numbers were the same ones that his brother had picked a while ago. And after a few more seconds, the screen had shown all the final 6 lucky numbers. They were 3, 18, 9, 38, 21, and 1. RMC didn't even need the bonus number because all of the first 6 were correct. Ryuan then exclaimed that this thing was insane. He can't believe that his brother was indeed right about taking some Nato tickets. His eyes were slowly being filled with tears. He even asked his brother to pinch him because he thought this was just a dream. But RMC just smiled at his brother and confirmed that this was all real. Ryuman then teased him and asked if he would prefer this thing to be just a dream. A few more confirmations were needed to really make Ryuan believe it. He then stood up and raised the tickets that they bought. He shouted at the top of his lungs as he was just too happy. But his celebration was cut short as RMC advised him to keep quiet. Their neighbors might hear him. Ryuman was just too happy to see his younger brother like this. He thought that he had the same reaction the first time he had bought the Nato tickets. He also screamed and celebrated the whole night. But as he regressed over and over again, this became the kind of annual event that he was obliged to do. This was all because he would eventually need a lot of money. Having the population cut off to 90% in just one night had really affected the economy of all the countries all over the world. And soon, item trade between players will also become available, which will all be done with a cash basis. Ryuan then asked his brother how much money they would get after exchanging all the tickets, and it was answered with an unsure response. All RMC cared about was this amount of money will be enough for them to shake the world. The next day, Ryuman went in front of the MANHUA bank building. Since he had done this a lot of times, him walking towards the teller didn't make him nervous at all. He then approached this individual and casually told him that he came in here to collect the NATO first place prize. Hearing this statement immediately made this guy congratulate RMC. But as he stared at Ryuman even further, he thought that this guy looked like a high school student. He then asked RMC about the store where he purchased the ticket. And he answered it by saying QS24, Yonghui branch. His answer made this guy startled. He then remembered what his colleague had shared to him about the number of tickets that had won this round. There were 115 of them. This guy claimed that what made it even crazier was that all 100 tickets were bought inside one store. He then got the idea that only one person had bought all of the tickets that day. Regardless of the circumstance, he was advised that whoever would claim the winnings from this store, he or she should be treated like a VVIP. This guy was then cut off by RMC as he was seen lost in his thoughts. He quickly apologized and asked for Ryuman to just wait for a while. A few moments later, another person came in and he greeted RMC. He introduced himself as Gwon Juno, the president of the Nongya Bank. The president of the bank personally greeted RMC because he was the one who won multiple NATO tickets. He also congratulated him in the process. Ryuman was then invited towards another place more quiet and was asked to follow the president. President Juno led him towards this room where the lottery ticket business team were placed. They entered the room and were greeted by a lady immediately. This one wondered who this guy was beside the president. She thought that maybe he was his son. But her question was immediately answered as the president introduced Ryuman as one of their VVIP who came in to claim his prize. He also told the lady that she should make him comfortable at all costs. The employee got more nervous upon learning that this guy just won 100 NATO tickets in one go. She then composed herself and decided to stay calm. After that, she offered Ryuman to sit first. She also asked him if he wanted to drink anything, but all RMC wanted was to get his winning prize right away. As part of the process, she will be confirming the NATO tickets first. Ryuman quickly handed her the tickets. There were really a lot of them, and while inspecting them, this lady couldn't help but think that this was too absurd. This was the very first time she had encountered anything like this. She even thinks that maybe this guy could see the future. After a few moments, she validated them and told RMC that they were all real. Ryuman then asked her how much he would be receiving, and just thinking about the number made her freeze. RMC patiently waited for a response. And it was revealed to be roughly 22.5 billion won. That's over $16 million. A perfect example of rags to riches, folks. After taxes, RMC was able to take home a whopping 15 billion won. Everything happened quickly after he had collected his reward. Ryuman got busy buying a new place for them to live in. That evening, he also opened a stock trading account. Around this time of year, Bitcoin was expected to go up by 500%, so he planned on investing in stocks after increasing his money with Bitcoin. A few days after, these two have already talked about their future plans. Ryuan saw some pictures of their new house. He claimed that he only saw this kind of big and expensive houses in photos. But one thing has bugged Ryuan, and that was the fact his brother preferred to just rent this house instead of buying it, even though they have more than to pay it in cash. It was then revealed to him that they didn't have any money anymore. His ever so intelligent and wise older brother has invested everything to Bitcoin. He allotted all 14 million won. Ryuman was part of the Deegans. And that statement made his brother act like a cartoon character. He froze and was not able to respond to anything. Ryuman then assured him that he just had to trust him as he already knew some things. This guy also prepared some kind of backup plan in case things went south. He revealed that he still has 4 sets of numbers that he saw in his dream. And he could just buy tickets again. Ryuan's eyes glittered as he realized that he had only seen people dreaming about lucky numbers on TV. He didn't even think they were true. He then shook his older brother and told him not to forget those numbers at all cost. In Ryuman's mind, he couldn't forget those numbers even if he wanted to because he had already done this multiple times. After that, this older brother told Ryuan that they should now go to lunch and be ready to leave. This confused him and asked Ryuman where they would be going. This guy then smiled and revealed that today was the day they will be moving in. Meanwhile, somewhere in this random place, a punch just landed on a wall. It's so powerful that it even created cracks all over the point of impact. This attack was from Yeomin. He smiled as he thought that putting all of his stat points in strength was really the best choice. On top of that, the rune that he got from the angel was the rune of strength. This allowed him to have his strength stat to be doubled in value, resulting on him having this kind of power. As he stared at the cracks that he made on the wall, he thought that even Mike Tyson would be jealous after seeing a punch this strong. Yeomin grew more ecstatic as he thought that he should try using his newfound power in an actual fight. Later that day, the guy that wished to become a thug came knocking outside Ryumin's house. Yeomin was already becoming annoyed because no one was answering. His calls were also not being seen. His gut feeling tells him that his errand boy was still alive. He then remembered the night when he saw Ryumin before the New Year event. He thought that he would really never let this thing go, especially when our MC stared at him like he was just a fly. The anger that he was feeling grew more as he remembered that memory. He claimed that he would now be killing him for sure. In his mind, even if Ryumin became a player, that cowardly errand boy would still be weak and needed to be taught a lesson. Yeomin thought that our MC would be naturally hiding inside his house. But even with these aggressive knocks, no one was answering. He suddenly stopped as he thought of a plan. He leaned towards the door and purposely commented that since Ryumin was not inside, he would go for now. Yeomin was now waiting to hear even just one breath coming from the inside. He was already planning to destroy the door instantly. But his attention was then shifted towards this old man who asked him what he was doing in front of his neighbor's door. This guy really had this rough attitude and asked the old man why he would care. Yeomin wondered if this old man was the landlord or something. And then this individual confirmed it. He was really indeed the landlord. The old man then asked Yeomin if he was there to meet a friend. And by getting this convenient alibi, he agreed and pretended to be our MC's friend. Yeomin even asked if the landlord could open the door for him. As for his reason, he lost contact with his friend, so he came in here to check what happened to him. But then, the old man revealed that Yeomin just got left behind by this friend of his. The landlord added that the room was empty now and the student that used to live there moved somewhere else. The only problem was that he had no idea where. This kind of situation then made Yeomin even more furious. He thought that Ryumin ran without saying anything. Meanwhile, the topic of their conversation was now standing in front of this elegant and tall skyscraper. Ryumin commented that it was just too tall. This guy even got amazed as they entered the building using a rotating door. He also watched his older brother get the special entry cards issued to the owners of the building. His amazement grew more as he saw a security guard confirm their identification. This was his first time after all. While they were inside the elevator, Ryuin added that this place was just too amazing. The place that they will be calling their home now was at the 43rd floor of the building. These two arrived at the place and they were greeted by this spacious place. All of the things inside were also brand new. Ryuin also found out that this place was over 330 square meters. As they checked all the areas of this place, Ryuin commented that this place might be just too big for just the two of them. The contract for the place was 500 million won in deposits, and 22 million won per month. That price was over 16,000 US dollars. And hearing this made Ryuin lose all of his strength. He remembered the time when they were already worrying about spending 5,000 won on a convenience store. The younger brother then suggested that they should just get a much cheaper house. But our MC disagreed. He revealed that the more they spent, the better the security. And that's all that matters right now. And that was because every first of the month, players fall under narcolepsy, and this period of time is the most vulnerable for all players. Natural disasters would really be a threat. On top of that, there had been instances that assassins were hired by other players, and so, when the time comes, players would need to be in a really safe place. Ryumin knew that no matter how strong the player is inside the game, everything will end if they die in real life. After checking all the parts of the house, Ryumin asked his younger brother if he really liked it here. And his answer was yes. RMC then commented that he was happy because Ryuin liked it. But looking at his older brother's face, Ryuin thought of something. Worry then became evident on his face. He also became silent. After a few seconds, this guy suddenly apologized to RMC. And that was because he felt guilty for having his older brother risk his life every first day of the month while he was just here enjoying all the best things in life. But this gloomy attitude was really not needed for today. Ryuman quickly tapped his shoulder. He then assured him that Ryuan doesn't need to feel down because he would surely come back every time. And to clear the atmosphere, our MC invited his brother to eat at the Korean place on the second floor. While waiting for Ryuan, our MC's phone rang and he checked it. He saw that young Min had finally noticed that he had already moved to another place. He also decided to ignore his calls as they will never be meeting in real life again. But it will be different in the other world. Their fate was destined to meet again. The day after moving in, Ryuman was still yawning as he walked out from his room. He then saw his younger brother having himself ready to go out. This guy revealed that he just ordered some rice cakes, so he will be going to grab them. Ryuan's statement confused our MC. Why rice cakes? This event hasn't occurred before. Regressing didn't mean that all things would happen the same way, but it still intrigued Ryuman. He then asked his younger brother the reason why he bought some rice cakes. And it was revealed that Ryuan had planned to give it to their new neighbors. This action had really been a common courtesy for Koreans. Our MC also thought that it was really not a bad idea to be a good neighbor. Ryuan was then commended for his good thinking. Ryuan was about to go out, but then our MC suggested that he should go with him and hand the rice cakes together. And just like that, the two of them started ringing the doorbells of their neighbors. They also introduced themselves and greeted them with their warm and sweet smiles. The first neighbor to open up was this old lady. She quickly noticed that these two were siblings because they really looked alike. The rice cakes were then given. This was the start of them having a great relationship with their neighbors. Ryuan has displayed his good manners towards the strangers that were in front of him. This act then continued for a while. Ryuan would always wear a smile while handling those rice cakes. And that was the same for our MC. This kid even returned the favor and politely accepted the rice cake. After a while, there's only one place left. And it was on the 44th floor. These two were eager to finish everything so they could rest. And while heading towards the last neighbor, our MC shared that the person who owned the floor bought both the 44th and 45th. That meant that whoever this person was should be at least mega rich. Our MC then tried remembering the details, and all he could recall was that the person who lives here was a celebrity. Ryuan pressed the doorbell, but no one was answering. He thought that maybe they were not inside. And since they were already here, it wouldn't hurt to try again. But after a few more seconds, Ryuan gave up. He was just about to suggest that they should just go back to their house, but he noticed something. This guy had recognized someone that was coming in their direction. The person that the two brothers saw was none other than the most famous celebrity in the whole Korea right now. This lady right here was Seo Rin. And she was considered to be one of the most beautiful actresses in the whole country.